Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, my dear students. I welcome you all in another Google Classroom. I hope that you all are fine and doing well. Students, in the previous lesson, we have started a new topic, the War of Independence, and we have discussed the causes of the War of Independence in that lesson. Today, we are going to read textbook pages 84, 85, 86, and 87, and we are going to discuss in these pages about the people who fought with the British Army. So let's have a look on prior knowledge. As you know, students, that prior knowledge is that you have already read in the previous lesson. So you must know the answers of these questions. So I'm going to ask some questions from you. Question is, name the Mughal emperor who was paid pension by the British. You must know the answer of this question. Yes, I'm going to tell you. The last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar was paid pension by the British. Next question is, tell briefly about Marathas. Who were Marathas? Marathas were Hindus. They were from the small part of Maharashtra in the west of India. So they were Hindus and they started to capture the Mughals' land. Let's discuss the learning objectives of today's topic. Students, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to establish and relate how the unrest in the subcontinent developed into a war for independence from British rules. You should be able to identify and describe the roles of Tatya Tope and Rani of Jhansi in the fight for independence. You should be able to explain how the British government disbanded the East India Company and took over the subcontinent. Students, you should be able to determine how the subcontinent was governed in 19th century. So these are the main points of today's topic. Most of the soldiers who attacked the British army bases were from the Bengal regiments. They were fighting a war for independence. The British called it a mutiny and punished the soldiers and anyone who helped them. After King of Jhansi, who has no son, the British took his land. His widow, the Rani fought British and died fighting at Gwalior. Tatya Tope, a Maratha, fought against the British. They captured him and executed him. The British Raj began in 1858. The subcontinent became a British colony and part of British Empire. The British Queen Victoria became Empress of India, who never visited the subcontinent. Students, these were the main points of today's topic. So let's discuss about the fighting for independence. Most of the soldiers who attacked the British army bases were from the Bengal regiments. They were fighting a war for independence. The British called it a mutiny and punished the soldiers. Students, mutiny is the word the British used for those people, for those soldiers or other armed forces who refused to obey their leaders. So it was called mutiny, and British called those soldiers who refused to obey their leaders, called them mutiny, and punished the soldiers and anyone who helped them. Both sides killed and harmed many ordinary people, even children. And students, you know that most of the Indian soldiers in the British army stayed loyal to Britain, and the British could not, and we have already discussed and read in the previous topics that the British could not have won the war without the local people, without them. Students, in our previous lesson, we have discussed that the British made a law that if a man died without a son, the government took his land. They made this law also in the subcontinent, so they could take more and more land from the people. So when the Maratha king of Jhansi died, he had no son, so the British took his land, but his widow, the Rani, fought them. She died fighting at Gwalior. So his widow, her name was, she was called Rani of Jhansi. She fought the British, and she died fighting at Gwalior. Another person, Tataya Top, he was another Maratha who fought the British. They captured him. The British captured him at his trial. He said he was guilty because he obeyed the Maratha leader and not the British. He said that he will follow the Maratha king, not the British. That's why British captured him and they executed him. They killed him. British killed Tataya Top. So the British took back all the army bases. It was the end of the British East India Company's rule, and the British government took over the charge. The British Raj. The British Raj or rule began in 1858, as well as India. Britain ruled the lands that are now Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Burma. This was all called India. It became a British colony and part of the British Empire. Empress of India, at that time when the British started their rule officially in 1858 in India. So then at that time Queen Victoria was the Queen of Britain. So she became the Empress of India, and you know that she never ever visited the subcontinent. She was living in the Britain, but she became the Empress of India, although she never visited the subcontinent. When Queen Victoria became the Empress of India, so she felt or she thought she must know about the subcontinent. So she had two Indian Muslims working in her palace. One of them was Abdul Karim. He became a secretary for the Queen, and he taught her Urdu, and he was her teacher and her secretary. And you know, many people in the British government did not like Abdul Karim because he was so close to the Queen at that time. The jewel in the crown. The subcontinent was so important to Britain that they called it the jewel in the crown. This expression had a double meaning. The Kohinoor diamond became part of the imperial state crown of Queen Victoria. The diamond was one of the spoils of war for hundreds of years. Its early history is not known for certain, but the Mughal emperors Babur and Humayun mention it in their memoirs. Later, Shah Jahan had it set among the jewels of his peacock throne, which has since been lost. But the diamond survived and was later owned by the Duranis of Afghanistan. During later conflicts, it came into the hands of Ranjit Singh and remained with the rulers of the Sikh Empire in Punjab until the British East India Company took it from Dulip Singh, the last ruler there. Another meaning of this phrase is that it was the Britain's largest colonial territory and an important part of the British Empire. A great deal of Britain's wealth in the 18th and 19th centuries came from India, from taxes, mineral ores, textiles, silk, indigo, gold, cotton, and spices, especially pepper. which was so valuable that it became known as black gold. India was also a huge market for British goods. It provided cheap and skillful labor in the British armies and civil services. So that's why the British Prime Minister British Prime Minister called it the brightest jewel in the crown in 1874. This is the statue of Queen Victoria, and it was used to stand in front of Frere Hall in Karachi when she was Empress of India. The name Frere Hall came from Henry Frere, a British official in Sindh. Now we are independent and Britain does not rule over us, so the Queen's statue is in a Karachi museum. Okay, students, it's time to ask the plenary questions. Question 1 is, when did the British Raj begin? Next question is, who was Tata Top? I hope that you would be able to answer of these questions after after listening to me. And okay, students, this is end of the lesson, and today we have finished unit number 8, the War of Independence, and it's your home task to read the whole topic from page 80 till 87 at least 5 times, and pick out the important points from the topic, learn the important dates and the causes of the war. And okay, my dear students, for more information about the topic, you can follow this YouTube link. With this is the end of today's lesson. Take very good care of yourself and people around you. Have a good day, and Allah Hafiz.